Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about the glass fender that I selected for the 4,200 gallon display. And I just want to start this video by talking about my vendor selection process, how I got quotes for the glass, some of the experiences I had with vendors I chose not to select for this build, and then dive into detail on the vendor I did select. Before I reveal the vendor that I selected, I do want to just disclaimer this, that there is no paid promotion. I wasn't asked to provide this review, and this is just my honest opinion on this vendor and my customer experience with them. With that being said, I selected GlassCages to get the glass for my 4,200 gallon display. And I cannot be happier with the product I received. I had a great customer experience with GlassCages. And I will say I had one small customer issue that came up with them, but they had great customer service and they resolved it. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in detail later in the video. But before I get into detail of why I selected GlassCages and my customer experience, I want to take a few minutes to talk about how I went about selecting my vendor for the glass. With a custom build that is so massive and one of a kind here, I knew that there might not be a ton of vendors out there that are willing to do this work. But in order to give everyone a fair shot, I started by making up a request for quote sheet that had everything that I needed for this glass. And I didn't make this up or reach out to any vendors until I was ready to make the purchase. In this case, I started off with just a little opening paragraph to say, here's my build, here's who I am, my YouTube, my Instagram. I wanted a quote for the glass cut to the dimensions below and in the specifications that were listed. And I also wanted shipping to my home. I did add on a couple extra lines to say too, if you are selected as a vendor and you want to participate in the build or are interested in that at all, that we could discuss that later. And I did not ask for anything for free. I didn't ask for discounts. I'm a paying customer. That's why I'm requesting this quote. So I didn't put anything in there requesting anything for free. The rest of the request for quote basically had every piece of glass, and I gave them all letters of the alphabet, so I think I was A through L. I had quantities and dimensions for all of them. And I requested quotes for standard float glass, low iron float glass, and also to get tempered in both those options too if it was available. I also had questions about hole drilling. I didn't have placement yet because I wanted to know if they could drill holes for 3-inch bulkheads or 2-inch bulkheads, just so that I could kind of finalize that piece. I sent this out to all the vendors roughly the same time, and this is where I want to talk about my experiences with vendors I didn't select. I'm not going to name any of these vendors by name, as I just don't think that that's the right thing to do, but I had some interesting experiences that I think are valuable to share. The very first vendor I reached out to, I emailed them the request for quote. They got back to me rather quickly and just said that, sorry, we're not interested, but wish me luck on the project, which I thought was great. At least they let me know that they're not interested and didn't leave me hanging out there waiting for a response. Now the second vendor, I was going through my LFS and they were going to be getting me a quote, so I was kind of waiting on them at that point. And I also had somebody on a forum reach out to me, and they also wanted to provide a quote. If not to purchase from them, at least they said I can give you some pricing, give you an idea of what things cost. And I thought that was nice, the person, that since that wasn't a business and that was an individual reaching out on a forum, I sent him a bit of a redacted request for quote and just had the glass dimensions. I didn't have my name, address, phone number, all that stuff on there. And I just said, well, we'll give it a shot. And they came back within a couple days and said they couldn't even get 3/4 inch glass, they could only get half. So took that right out of the question there. I'd also requested my quote to GlassCages, but we'll get back to them in a minute because there was a show that I was going to be attending for a whole weekend. And at this show, two of these vendors that I was reaching out to for quotes were going to have booths there. So I decided, even the vendor that told me no via email, I said, well, hey, I love to BS. I'll go down there and talk to them and see if they want to change their mind or anything. You know, you never know. So I went to the show and went to that vendor's booth, and I picked a time where it was kind of in a lull. There weren't a lot of people around. It wasn't super busy at their booth. In fact, there were no customers there that I could see. It was just all their reps. And they were very busy talking to each other and playing on their phones. One of them kind of looked up at me and just put their head down, and I was just like, wow, like, you're not even going to say hello to me? I walked away, and they told me no already, so no loss to me. But I gotta say though, that was a disappointing experience, especially at a show where I should have a rep at least come up to me and say hello. The second vendor, I went to their booth, and their reps were very nice. They both came up to me, said hello, asked me how I'm doing, and wanted to know if I had any questions about their products. So from there, I kind of proceeded to say, well, hey, I'm doing this 4,200 gallon display build. I am ready to buy glass, and I'm looking for a vendor to cut sheets of glass to specification and ship them to me. From my standpoint, that's pretty easy because all you got to do is cut the glass, package it up, and ship it out. You don't even have to assemble the tank. They kind of looked at each other and said, I don't know if we can do this. This isn't a job our business normally does, but they said, you know, we'd have to call the owner to see if they'd be willing to do this job and just cut glass for you. I said, well, that's not a problem at all, and that's fine. And at this point, I kind of anticipated that the rep was going to say, let me call the owner right now, or can I take your name and number and get back to you? You know, I was expecting that. But instead, someone else they knew walked up to the booth, and both the reps just walked away from me. And they were like, oh, hey. They didn't say, oh, hold on a second or excuse me. They just walked away. And I was like, are you kidding me? Am I being punked? And I was like, I can't believe that. Like, I've never experienced something like that at a show. So I've been to a fair amount of shows. I've never had a rep just abruptly walk away and not say, excuse me for a moment, or anything like that, or give me 1 second. They just walked away. And I was like, well, that's not a great customer experience to start. And I'm not exactly buying a cheap product here. It's not like I'm buying 1 bag of salt from you. I'm looking to make a major purchase of glass. So that was my experience at the show. Thought it was valuable to share. Ultimately, I told my LFS that at this point I just said, you know what, I'm not interested. Well, let's take it back to GlassCages and why I selected them as a vendor. When I emailed GlassCages their request for quote, they emailed me back within a business day and said, Alex, let's set up a conference call, talk about your project and what GlassCages can do for you. And I thought that was a great start to a potential relationship with a business. We had a call. I believe it lasted somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes. It was a very good, productive call. We chit-chatted a bit, but we had some really good, serious conversations about the build. Matter of fact, one of the first things that Joe told me was, hey, one of your pieces of glass is 145 inches long. I can't do that. I only get sheets up to 144. And mistake on my part, and don't ask me how I did this, but somehow I translated the 144 to 14 feet, and I thought glass came in 14-foot sheets, so I was like, oh, that inch isn't a big deal. But in either case, not a big deal. I shortened that piece of glass. I lengthened this one on the side. No problem. It's not going to affect anything. We had a great conversation about the aquarium, and he just was interested to know, just placement of the glass, how it was going in, like some basic information on the build. And at this point, I think it's really important to talk to anyone out there that's a DIYer on the other side of the camera or is considering DIY. Now, Joe said something to me that I thought was a great analogy for anyone building a DIY aquarium and ordering glass or acrylic or whatever from a specialized vendor. Joe told me, Alex, you're building a Lego set. I am going to make you some Lego blocks, which are in the form of glass. What you do with those Lego blocks and how you place them, where you put them, how you get them there and secure them there, it's up to you to decide how to do that. And I thought that was such a great analogy about a DIY aquarium build, because I'm building this tank and I'm requesting GlassCages to make me glass to my specifications. It's not their responsibility to tell me if the aquarium is going to hold water, if my structure is going to be right and engineered well to hold the aquarium. That's all on me. Now, this would be a totally different conversation if I was paying them for an engineering service and I said, I want you to evaluate my structure to see if it'll hold this water and work with your product. That would be a different request, but that's not what I asked them. I wanted to just purchase glass. So just a good reminder for DIYers or potential DIYers out there. If you're building an aquarium, you should never expect that your vendor that's just supplying you materials is going to give you engineering advice about your structure and whether or not it'll hold water. I think the most you're going to get out of anyone is if they think you're doing something that's really unsafe, they're probably going to say, I don't think what you're doing is a good idea. And they probably stop there. Good first conversation. We had some follow-up calls and email exchanges on quotes. I never felt pressured, and I did tell Joe and his team when we had our call, I am reaching out to multiple vendors. And he told me about the company and how, since he has become the owner and changes they're making, how they're improving quality and, providing a better customer experience from GlassCages that they had in years past before he took over the business. And, I just thought it was a great conversation. And like I said, they came back to me with the quotes I requested. Now, GlassCages does not offer tempered glass, so that is not something that they could provide a quote on. And for shipping with this particular order, they would only ship it to the nearest ABF freight terminal, and it was my responsibility to get it from there back to my house. And if you watch my last video on glass delivery, you'll understand why that's not something that they would take on as a business. And I gotta say, even if they did, it probably would have doubled the cost, because it is a huge amount of work to get something like that coordinated. So fully understandable they don't ship to door, but at least it was getting to the ABF terminal just a few miles from the house. Now, the final thing I wanted to talk about was my holes for my overflow. Now, with this, I actually kind of delayed the quote process up a bit. When it came to asking where did I want the holes placed on there, I kind of had a bit of I hadn't really thought about exactly where I want it, because I needed to buy the bulkheads once I knew how big the holes could be drilled, and they can't do 3-inch bulkheads, only 2. So I had to purchase 5 2-inch bulkheads and all the plumbing fixtures for it, for me to just lay it out how it should be back there and make sure the measurements I picked were right. And this, I thought, was a great follow-up call I had with Joe. I had sent where I wanted those holes placed, and he called me up and he goes, well, Alex, on the placement of your overflow holes, he goes, they seem a little bit high. He goes, I could tell you what we do here for our overflows, and he recommended to me that I move the holes for the drain lines down a little bit further. That way, if I wanted to do like bean animal or have a little bit more height in the overflow box itself, I could do that. If it's too close to the top of the tank, it's not going to allow me to do those things as easily. So I did take his advice, and I decided to move those holes a little bit lower. Now, with all my quotes in hand, I was happy with the price of the glass and the shipping. I went ahead and went forward with the order. Now, I'm not going to say how much the glass was or what I paid for the glass or shipping. I felt that the quote was fair, and prices constantly are changing, so it's not fair to anybody to share that pricing because it could change overnight depending on supply and demand. I went forward with the order. This was in October, and I was told it's probably going to be sometime between the end of 2022 and early 2023. I said that's no rush. I am taking my time with this build. About 3 weeks after I placed my order, I got another email from GlassCages that said, we are ready to start cutting glass. Before we do that, let's go through everything one more time and verify every piece of glass is to your right dimensions before we cut. I went through probably the 5th or 6th time measuring all this, and I found one mistake on my part. This piece of glass right here, originally I had mentioned I had to shorten this piece here to 144 inches, and this piece I just added an inch on. But I had made a mistake in that, and this piece of glass would have been too long, so I ended up making a correction and letting them know, hey, I need to shorten this piece. So it was a great follow-up that, saved me from my own mistake here. So I thought that was great that I got that follow-up email. After that, the order was re-verified, and early January I got my glass, came into the house. I was really happy that we got through the move and everything, but there was one part of the glass move I left out, and this is where my little problem with my order came up. When the movers were trying to put the last piece of glass in, it didn't fit. Now, when I saw this, I realized the piece of glass with my overflow holes on it was extending out all the way to the back of the glass, and it was really supposed to fit in between the two sheets of glass on the long sides. So I didn't do anything about it for a bit. I needed to kind of just decompress from everything going on with the move that day and said, let me clear my head. I'll come downstairs later and take a look at this. I went down here, I got a tape measure out, because at this point I said, I don't know if I made a mistake in the measurements or if GlassCages made a mistake with a piece of glass. So I measured it out, and the glass was at 70 inches and 15/16. And I said, that does not sound right. I went to my computer, checked my email where we verified size, and indeed, that piece of glass was 1 inch too long. It was supposed to be 69 inches and 15/16. I think it's really important here, as someone that's building a tank like this, I didn't get mad or upset. I said, okay, well, we have a problem. This is where good customer service comes in. I emailed Joe and the GlassCages team a picture of the tape measure on the glass and the measurement, and a screenshot of the verification of the measurement stating that I verified the 69 and 15/16 and I received 70 and 15/16. I'd like to set up a call tomorrow to talk about our next steps here to correct this. I sent an email out at like 6:30 at night for this. Joe sent me an email within about an hour, and he just said, Alex, I'm sorry that this happened. You call me anytime you're ready tomorrow. We are going to make this right. The next day, I called Joe. We had a great conversation. Again, he said, hey, I'm sorry about this. We're going to make it right. I will ship you a new piece of glass free of charge, no cost to you. We're just going to replace it. And I really want to say, that is good customer service. And the fact is, people make mistakes. It's going to happen. This was a one-of-a-kind custom build, not a stock tank that's being built by the hundreds or thousands. So a mistake happened. And I'm not upset about it. I'm happy, in fact, in part for being able to share this with everyone, is that they made a mistake and they fixed it. No questions asked. I've got other reef keeping friends out there that have had some absolute nightmares when it comes to things like this, where they're getting ghosted by a supplier, or they don't want to pay for it, or they don't want to do it, or they've done the job wrong and they're just giving you the runaround. And I am so happy I did not get any of that stress, because GlassCages did the right thing and just fixed the problem. And you can't ask for anything more than that. So this is where the story, I'll derail it myself, because I decided that I wanted to do something. Now, Joe, as we're on the phone, I'm talking to Joe, and I said, so we both agree this piece of glass has no value to you and no value to me, and you're going to replace it free of charge. And he re-verified and said yes. And I said, okay, I like a challenge. I've got a diamond wet saw. I want to try cutting this inch off of it. And Joe immediately said, Alex, you don't have to do that. I'm not asking you to do, I will just replace it. And I said, Joe, I said, this is a fun thing for me. I just like a challenge. And he goes, well, hey, if that's what you choose to do, you can do that. Which, again, I wanted to do this. I thought it'd be fun. So I said, give me a few days. If I'm successful, I'll let you know. And he says, if you're successful, we'll figure something out. And if you're not, I'll just replace it. I got nothing to lose. So I decided to make a fun DIY project out of this. And I built a DIY wet saw track saw using my little 7-inch cup saw, and decided to start cutting some scrap glass that I had left over from my broken sheet of glass on the 400 and my old cross braces on the 1600 gallon system for practice. With the saw, I was able to cut the glass pretty good, and I was fairly confident here. I had a little bit of end chipping, but it wasn't anything severe. It could be sanded down, and I was like, I think this might work. So after about a half dozen or so practice runs and getting a new blade and doing a practice run with that, I was ready to cut the big piece of glass. I went ahead and I cut this piece of glass off, and I thought it went pretty well. There was a little bit of an end chip on here, but nothing too severe that I would have been worried about. And I had this piece of glass I cut off sitting there, and I was like, I did it! I did it! It turned out great! And then I picked this up, and a big corner of the big sheet of glass just fell off. Like half the depth of the glass had a giant corner chip on it, right in the middle. And I just went, I'm not using that. I tried, I failed. It was fun to try. Again, GlassCages didn't ask me to do this. I did it for myself. It was fun. I tried, I failed, but hey, I could say I made a DIY wet saw track saw, and with that I cut a bunch of the glass that was from my old 1600 gallon system that I needed to remove some plywood from, and I also cut that sheet of glass that I had broken building the 400. So it wasn't like it was a total waste of time or anything. It was a fun project, and I got something out of it, and hey, I could say I did it. Back to GlassCages and the replacement class now. So after that fun little trial, I emailed GlassCages and said, send the replacement. They re-verified measurements with me, which I think I measured that piece of glass about 20 times to make sure 69 inches and 15/16 is perfect for what it's supposed to be. So I was like, okay, yep, it's good. It wasn't a measurement issue. We're good there. And they told me that it was going to take approximately 3 weeks to get that replacement piece of glass. And in fact, in a week and a half, I had it in hand. I just got a buddy with a pickup truck. We went down to the ABF terminal. They loaded it in his truck with a forklift. And the two of us could handle that sheet of glass on our own because it was under 6 feet. And I just made a shortened ramp to slide it through the escape window and get it in the tank. So it was real easy, and it's packaged beautifully, no chips or scratches on it. And when I opened it up, the very first thing I did was get the tape measure out and looked at it and go, okay, size is perfect, there's no damage, all the holes are where they're supposed to be. It looks beautiful. So I got that piece of glass in and positioned. It fits exactly how it's supposed to, and I'm happy. So GlassCages, thank you. I'm very happy with the product that I received from you and the customer service. Despite there being a small mistake, you guys did an excellent job with customer service to make it right, and I'm really happy about that. And with that, you know, as far as other critiques of GlassCages here, I really don't have anything. I had a great customer experience. If I want to really be nitpicky, I guess I could say I didn't get a free t-shirt. I see that sometimes. I think other people get free t-shirts. I didn't get a free t-shirt. And the shipping to the door would have been nice, but I understand why that's not in their business model to provide that. So again, great customer experience. If you are going to be looking to purchase cut sheets of glass or an aquarium, as I said at the beginning of this video, you should always request quotes from multiple vendors and see if they're going to be the right business for you. I highly recommend that you do give GlassCages a chance and see if they're going to be the right vendor for you to give you the products that you are looking for. That's the video for today, everybody. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you got comments or questions, go ahead and leave them down below. And if you want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I always am making videos about this display as I'm building it every major step of the way. And it's going to get exciting here. The glass is getting staged up to be sealed. You can see all the structure around me going in here for glass bracing. And once I finish that and get the glass sealed in place, I'm going to start working on giving this aquarium a beautiful furniture finish on it so it doesn't look like a rough construction site anymore, which is going to be an enormous change to this build. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.